welcome to Red Line Talk Show. We're here today with Iliana and a special guest. Her name is Samantha Sarelli, who is a first born generation Albanian American and a former Miss Connecticut of Teen USA.
Yes.
Welcome, Samantha.
Welcome,
Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Thank you for coming again, and it's a pleasure to have you on the show. So tell us a little bit about your background. I know you were born in Connecticut.
Well, I was born in New York, but yes,
York,
I was
okay.
raised in Connecticut. I'm the daughter of Albanian immigrants. My mom is from Shoqata. My father's from Ulqini. I'm the oldest of four, so I definitely learned responsibility from a young age. And my parents just instilled a lot of those traditional Albanian values in me, growing up, like most Albanian American kids.
I like to call us Albanian Americans here that still hold on to those values of modern traditionalists.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So as I mentioned, you were part of Miss Teen USA, representing Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
And you focused on combating human trafficking.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that and why that specifically.
So my mom, like I said, she was born and raised in Shoqata, and I remember her telling me about a friend of hers in high school that was trafficked when she was 14 years old.
In Albania.
Yes. Her friend was promised to be engaged to some man who lived in Italy, got engaged, and it turned out to be a trafficker, and she never got to see her friend again.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So my mom kind of told me that this is an issue that was really prevalent in Albania. But as we all know, and as we see throughout the news and through the media, human trafficking doesn't just happen in third world countries. It happens here in the United States.
Right.
It happens in every state in the country. It does not discriminate, but it does especially impact people who come from certain backgrounds. And so when I won Miss Connecticut Teen USA, it was my third time competing. And I knew that as a title holder, I have this amazing responsibility, but I also have this kind of pressure to be, a role model for others. And I knew that because other young girls were looking up to me, and because I knew that I had, fans now from, the international pageant fan community, it's all over the world. I knew people were going to listen, and I wanted to really teach people about this issue. So that's when I first developed my human trafficking video series, giving victims their voices.
The voice, yep.
And I interviewed human trafficking survivors. I interviewed different organizations, and I really became a spokesperson for different organizations as well to raise awareness on this issue, as well as hosting various virtual events. And it's definitely something that's grown even past pageants. I developed an anti-trafficking program for high school students in both English and Spanish. I spoke at the Senate Heart Building on human trafficking. And most recently, I did an international human trafficking panel. So this is something that I'm really passionate about because I feel so much privilege and so much responsibility to be able to use my voice in a really important issue and hopefully raise awareness and help save lives.
There are different types of human trafficking. So there's organ trafficking, there's sex trafficking, labor trafficking, and a few others. Is there a specific one that you're focusing on, or is it encompassing all the different types of human trafficking?
I would say overall everything, but definitely a little bit more focused on sex trafficking and labor trafficking especially, because it does impact so many, especially young girls and children.
And I do know you speak multiple languages, including speaking Albanian fluently.
Yeah.
Did you think about maybe translating your work into Albanian as well and going into Albania and trying to get that information out to the schools there? Because it's definitely a need over there as well.
Honestly, I haven't thought of that, but it's definitely something that I do want to do in the future. There's a lot of, honestly, little projects and ideas I have. It's just finding the time
The
to
right
do
timing.
it.
And it's the timing, too.
It is the
Right.
timing. It's the hardest thing. And also, when you're talking about an issue like human trafficking, it's not very easy to go to different countries and talk about this issue when
Right.
there's a lot of powerful people who, are involved in this sort of field.
And that's everywhere in America.
Of course.
In Albania and Europe.
Absolutely. No, it's not just, like I said, it's not just in like the third world countries like people see in movies. It happens right here in our own backyard. So it's not always easy to kind of put my put that work out there, but it's something that I'm slowly trying to do.
But how do you do it? Do you do like give advice, give tips, do you
Yeah.
share stories? How do you do it specifically?
So I've hosted different events, and a lot of those events are on raising awareness and on focus on prevention. And overall, those events have all, God willing, been a great success. And a lot of people have always given me great feedback, saying that they've learned a lot. When I did my presentations in high schools, I actually was able to identify multiple human trafficking victims after just giving my presentations, which just goes to show you how important it is to educate others and spread awareness on this issue. And it's not an easy issue to tackle either, you
It
know.
really isn't.
Especially when I first started doing this, I was 18 years old. And a lot of people, especially in the pageant realm, you don't really see people taking on such a dark issue.
Yeah.
And, you know, you see people taking on a little bit more lighthearted issues or things that are a little bit easier to talk about, because human trafficking isn't this like glamorous sort of topic to talk about. But I always said that it's happening to girls my age. It's happening to 5-year-old girls. I've heard stories of it happening to 6-month-old babies.
Oh my God.
You know, when it's happening to young kids, we can't really turn, you know, a blind eye to something like this.
Your work is very important, especially today. I mean, this is important work even previously, because this is an issue that's been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Absolutely.
But today it's really out there, especially
Yeah.
with the today's news, with what's going on with P. Diddy and
Yeah.
all of that investigation. Is this the current events pushing you even more to get your awareness out there and take your work to another level?
Absolutely. I mean, it's sad to hear the stories that are coming out, but I'm definitely glad to see that the media is focusing on this issue more, because kind of like what you were mentioning, this has been happening for so many years. And it's something that the media typically didn't cover, or they didn't cover properly. A lot of people think human trafficking is just a guy coming in a white van and stealing you. What they don't know is that it's much more complicated than that. Traffickers typically lure their victims in a variety of different ways, but a lot of times it's from someone you know. So traffickers can be someone's parents. Most times it's someone's boyfriend.
Wow.
You know, it's someone that, you know, these
That you
traffickers.
think you're trusting.
Yes, they're
Right.
people that these trafficking victims trust. These traffickers will prey on their vulnerabilities. You know, they will especially target young people who come from broken homes, who grew up in poverty, refugees, just people of all different sort of backgrounds. So,
And it's prevalent more in females, but also
of course,
definitely prevalent in males as well.
of course, absolutely.
So you created an anti-trafficking program for high school students,
Yeah.
right? Tell us a little bit some of the challenges doing that when you did that project.
Did you have any resistance from the schools to come in and speak about such a dark topic?
It actually was extremely difficult. It was not easy at all. I would say that I faced a lot more rejection than I did acceptances.
Wow.
Only because a lot of these schools said, well, this issue is really dark to teach for students. We're going to have to get parent permission. Some schools, you know, kind of dismissed it, didn't see it as something that maybe was so prevalent in their communities. So it was not easy at all to get out there and put it out there. But the schools that did accept it did say, like I said, that they were able to identify trafficking victims just from me coming to their schools. And like I mentioned earlier, I did my presentations in Spanish as well, because some of the schools that I was targeting were schools with a large Latino, Hispanic community. So it was really important to me to be able to reach out to those students as well, who are also especially vulnerable to being trafficked.
How was it received by students and educators when you spoke about this?
Students, I think students were very much in shock. I think there was a lot of interest in it too. There was a lot of students that would come up afterwards and come and try to talk to me, ask me more questions, or share a story of someone they thought might be being trafficked and wanting advice. So I think it's something that is really important. And I think honestly, across schools across the country, especially because human trafficking and child sex trafficking has been reported in all 50 states, I think it's really important that schools develop some sort of anti-trafficking program. just to be able to teach kids about this issue and spread more awareness. And I think it especially needs to happen in schools in inner cities, where especially a lot of these students are going to be especially targeted.
So based on your research that you have done on sex trafficking, have you noticed an increased number of sex trafficking since the internet and the social media ages?
I can't speak on exact numbers, but absolutely. I mean, it's much easier now for traffickers to target and find victims online. It's a lot easier for them to find them, lure them in. Some of them are able to traffic them from their own homes. So, in the sense of, I've heard stories of traffickers being able to kind of extort these young kids for like naked photos or naked videos of them, and they're able to sell those naked videos to other people online, and they're able to kind of keep those kids in that cycle. So it absolutely does happen. It's just
So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're being kidnapped and being sold to somebody, and now
trafficking comes in all different types of forms.
yeah. Can you talk about the different forms just to let our viewers, kind of be aware of the different types that exist right now?
Well, like I said, like there are traffickers that lure their victims online in that way. More than often, though, like I said earlier, traffickers will kind of lure their victims by pretending to be like a boyfriend. They'll take on that role of where they'll start to date them. They give them all this love and attention and gifts, and then eventually they're like, well, if you love me, you're going to do this for me. And that's when they kind of start to sell a lot of their victims. And they keep them trapped by promising them, all this love and affection. But they also sometimes keep them trapped through physical abuse, through drugs, through all sorts of things. And it's not easy for a lot of these victims to leave.
Yeah, I was going to say, how do you fight that? It's very hard to fight, though.
It's extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult. That's why prevention is so important. I think also, though, in terms of laws, obviously prostitution being illegal, a lot of human trafficking victims are scared of the police and coming forward and having it go on their criminal record. So I think it's important that, we have better laws where, like, one type of law that I'm especially a fan of is something called the equality model, where it does not punish victims of human trafficking. It decriminalizes prostitution, but it further criminalizes pimps, and it further criminalizes like Johns, who are like the buyers, and obviously keep this whole thing going. And it also provides exit strategies for people to leave like the sex trade.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you are the executive director of Shoqata Ulqini.
Yes.
And you focus on empowering young women and children across Albanian Diaspora. Can you tell us a little bit more about that initiative?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm so honored to be taking on this like new role, and something that I'm always been really passionate about, especially since I was Miss Connecticut Teen USA, was really focusing on female empowerment, especially for my fellow Albanian girls out there. I'm so grateful that I grew up with parents who, never looked at me differently, like looking at, oh, is there a difference between a son and a daughter? My parents always, always kind of were my biggest fans and always wanted me to, pursue my dreams, to pursue an education, and always believed in me. So with that, I really wanted to focus on empowering young girls in our community to, and take on, leadership roles, to inspire them to follow their dreams, stuff like that. So one of the first events that I just did a few weeks ago was...
It was a really great event.
Yeah, I'm so glad you came and you loved it. It was a very big success. It was a lot of stress put into planning that event, I'm not going to lie. But luckily, I had the president of Shoqata's support. Gemma was very, very helpful in putting that event together. But I had it with Emina Chunmulaj and Violeta Berisha, and it was an honor to have both of them, just because I think they're such great examples of strong Albanian women. Obviously, Emina, with all her philanthropy work and the things that she's been doing for the Albanian community, it's been so inspiring. And then having Violeta, who's the second Albanian American female mayor in the United States, was also an honor.
Having more and more of these type of women empowerment events are so important in our community, because not everyone is as lucky as you or myself. Because I also had parents who instilled, education, and you can do anything you want to do. If you want to stay home, you can stay home. You want to work, you want to go to work. If you want to go to school, and pursue your dreams. You have
Absolutely
everything in your power, like to do that and make it happen. But not everyone is as lucky as us. So thank you so much for organizing that event, and I hope to see that you organizing more of those events that are targeting the children.
Absolutely.
High school students, college students, even elementary students. It just would be nice to start that foundation. I'm sure you're working on stuff like that already.
100%. I am. I'm going to be doing more events focused on, female empowerment, especially like with our kids and with our youth, because I do think it starts young. But it also, like, as you saw at my event, I had women of all ages at that event. Yes. And that was really important to me too, because there are older Albanian women, especially, who we know have suffered and struggled because they were being mistreated by husbands or in-laws or just other family members. And it was really important for me to make sure that women like those women also have a safe place. I want to make sure that all women feel welcomed at my events. I want all women to leave feeling empowered, especially because there is still this mentality, and I've heard it. So I've gotten messages on this too. Just because an Albanian woman is empowered in herself does not make her a bad girl. It does not mean that she's going to be a bad wife. It does not mean she's going to be a bad mother, because I think that there is still a little bit of this mentality where, like, a woman needs to be more submissive, or she can't use her voice, or she can't overpower anyone else, because, well, then you're not going to be a good wife. And I've heard comments like this before. Right. That mentality and that sort of mindset is just so far from the truth. When a woman is empowered, when a woman feels like she can take on anything, I think you can still be an incredible wife and an incredible mom. And I also think it's important, something with the other event that we just did with the president of Kosovo, one of the things that she spoke of is the strength of Albanian women and the strength of Albanian moms especially. I think it's important that we can see and recognize as a community that there are obviously great men out there too, and there's nothing. We're not bashing the men just because we're empowering girls.
You had about 7 or 8 men there. We were
applauding them for coming. We love strong, supportive men who are confident enough in themselves that they don't feel threatened by strong women.
No, absolutely. I think you're right. I think our community is strong because of our women.
Yes,
right? That they're the backbone of our society.
Absolutely,
I strongly believe that. And the more we empower them, the better we'll be as a community as a whole.
Absolutely.
So I applaud you for this initiative. But tell us a little bit more of future projects that you guys are working on that you want to showcase.
So I have nothing exactly like set in stone right now. I'm actually still in the works, but I do want to do a few different events with Albanian influencers, Albanian singers. Also, one event that I'm especially going to be focusing on, and I think it's really important, and it's something that I got a lot of great feedback on, is I do want to speak on Albanian women and being in abusive relationships and toxic relationships. I think it is pretty prevalent in our community, and I do want to create a safe space for these women to come forward or to at least feel empowered and to know their worth. I think it's a really important issue that happens to so many young girls too, to this day. And I think that's a big initiative that I'm especially going to be focusing on is something like that. I do want to do an event on like something maybe on autism. I also think that it's a prevalent issue, not just in our community, but just in the world. So I have a lot of ideas, honestly, in mind. And I have a few different speakers already in mind as well, but I don't want to throw their names out there in case until everything is, set in stone. But I'm definitely honored.
We just had Shpresa Jacli on our podcast.
Yes, I saw
speaking about autism. So it's the feedback from that show and just seeing the community that was developed within. There's a lot of parents who, are parents of children with autism that need that help. They need that support. They need that community. Yeah. So creating an event where, they could all come together and share their stories is so important. So
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to that event.
That it's definitely something that's going to be in the works, especially because I do have a little cousin that does have autism. So he's a big inspiration as to why I would be doing something like that. But more than anything, when I do a lot of my advocacy work, when I was Miss Connecticut Teen USA, and if I decide to do future pageants in the future and take on more titles, I don't really see any of these events as a way to kind of boost myself or put myself out there. I see these events and these roles that I take on as a way for me to serve others.
Right. It's creating that larger platform for you to get your mission out.
Exactly. I just see this though, like my role as executive director of Shoqata Ulqini, it's my opportunity to serve the people. It's my opportunity to really see what kind of events that the people want to be a part of. So a lot of like my ideas do come from the things that I hear from the other women or the other members around me, the comments that I see on social media. So I do, my job really is just to serve our community. And that's really what I hope to do with all my future events. And that's what I want all my future attendees, who come to my events to know, is that I do this all to serve us and to hopefully, inspire others and also to create change. So
I would love to see you go for Miss Albania.
Well, it's definitely something that is a possibility. There's also, Miss USA. That's
You could do
out
Miss
there.
USA as well.
So we'll
Miss
see.
Universe.
Exactly. My dream is to get to Miss Universe.
Really?
My
Okay,
dream
we
is.
just had Edward Deda on the show too.
You missed him by a half hour.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
so cool. Yes, my dream is to get to Miss Universe, but we will see what God has planned for me. I do see, though, my pageant titles as a way, like I said, for me to serve others. I don't see it as a way just to do fun, fancy photo shoots or to get free things or any of that. It's just an opportunity and a platform for me to reach more people. And that's really important to me.
I see you getting there. Either Miss USA, Miss Albania, Miss one of those.
Thank you. Thank you.
I do have to say though, so I know Samantha. We had an exchange a while back.
Yes.
She was one of the first ones who supported the Sheephead brand.
Oh,
Yes.
And she posted about it. I was like, oh wow, that's pretty
Yes.
cool because at the time you were going through the pageant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
thank you for your support.
Of course. I have to support my Albanians.
So what's Samantha after? I mean, you have great causes going on here. What do you do for fun? Like, what are some of your hobbies?
Well, if I'm not spending time with family and friends, I mean, I love fashion. I love shopping. I work out. But honestly, I think the biggest thing is just spending time with family and friends, traveling when I can, stuff like that.
Okay.
Nothing too crazy.
Any future? Like, what's your vision? Where do you see yourself in 5 years from now?
Okay, 5
Miss
years
Universe.
from now.
Well, you gotta have goals, right? So,
Of course. No, absolutely. Well, hopefully another pageant title. I've accomplished another pageant title. Definitely have graduated law school. So definitely starting my career off as an attorney. God
Okay.
willing, married.
Very
so,
important.
Are you
know,
single right now?
I am single right now.
Right.
I'm single right now. So focusing on that.
Do you have a type?
Do I have a type? I say the biggest thing is that he's a good person with integrity. He's a gentleman, taller than me, hopefully.
With heels too.
I know. I'm a tall girl. Just someone who values family, someone who values God. stuff
That's
like
actually
that.
very important. A lot of people forget that part, to
Yeah.
value God. And
Yeah.
for me, that was one of the most important things in finding
is.
my husband, who's now sitting next to
Yeah.
me, is someone who believes in God.
100%. It's so important. I mean, regardless of what faith you are, just having
Exactly.
like that believing in like a higher power and having something that kind of keeps you grounded. And also
Exactly.
kind of keeps you in check, where you know that, hey, your actions have consequences. And I think it's really important.
And it's
so,
important to find someone that kind of matches what your beliefs are, along with your foundation and upbringing, because that's how
Absolutely.
you want to raise your children. So if there's two
Absolutely.
totally different styles of upbringing, sometimes you can find the common goal of like what are the best of each and kind of blend it together. But a lot of times it just causes a lot of issues when you have your own kids and how you want to raise your
Absolutely.
children.
Well, I think honestly, I am someone who dates for marriage. I date with intention. And so having those
Exactly.
serious
That's a good mindset to
conversations,
have. Yeah.
yeah, having those serious conversations in the
Right away
beginning
in the
before,
beginning.
like, and just having those really hard conversations, I think it's important. But I do think it's important too, in a relationship that you both respect each other as well, and you have that respect for each other, you respect each other's family, and that you're supportive, you're not intimidated. Kind of like what I was saying earlier.
Yeah, having a secure man next to you.
Exactly. I definitely want a man who is confident in who he is and doesn't feel threatened by anything that I do, just like I wouldn't be threatened by my partner.
Exactly.
Does he have to be Albanian?
He doesn't have to be Albanian, to be honest with you. I know. I know.
I mean, his brand is sheep ass.
I know. But to be completely honest with you, it's very hard in today's world to find a good person.
Just in general,
So
right?
I think it is in general that it's tough to really just limit yourself to one community. Obviously, if he's Albanian, that's a great plus because he already knows the culture and the traditions.
And the language.
And the language.
And the music, the
and like all the
dancing.
rules of dating an Albanian girl.
Right.
Like, hey, you can't meet my parents can't know about you for like the first like 3-4 months, like, or all those like crazy like little things that I feel like so many Albanian girls talk about, like drop me off down the street from my house, not in front of my house. And like it's definitely easier to date an Albanian guy in that regard, but I do believe that God has a plan for me and that whoever my partner's meant to be, he'll bring him along whenever the time is right.
Whenever the time is right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's no timeline for stuff like this either. You can't really put too much pressure on yourself because people meet their soulmates at all different ages and times in their life.
Typical Albanian talk show. We go into the marriage.
I know. I
Wow.
know. Well, honestly, I don't mind having this conversation because I remember a couple years ago when I was doing an interview on Albanian TV and she was like talking to me about my pageant journey. And then all of a sudden she's like, so where's your husband from? And I'm like, husband? I'm like, I don't have a husband.
Was that the craziest question you were asked?
Yes, I was totally taken aback because, first of all, like I have nothing on my social media to indicate that I'm married. I was also 20 years old. And she was like, so tell me about your husband. And I was like, husband.
And when they find out you're
I
single,
think
they're
she
all
was
trying
to find out if you were single or not.
Yeah.
I guess so. But it was definitely a weird question to ask in front of everyone.
Once they find out you're single, they're already trying to set you up with someone.
I know, literally.
Have you traveled to Albania at all?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
Which parts and which one's your favorite?
Shkodër, Tirana, and like some of like the other like outer cities of like I think it was where was it?
Have you been to the south at all or no?
No, I have not, and that's
Oh
something
my
that I really
God.
want to do.
Okay, we're going. We're going.
I have to do it, but my family mainly lives in Shkodër, and so it's
And Ulqini, you said, right?
Yes, my father, exactly. But my dad doesn't have any family in Montenegro. I have gone to Montenegro before. I just don't go very often.
Right.
So the south of Albania just hasn't happened yet, but it's something that's going to happen hopefully in the next summer too.
Okay, so we'll meet you there next
Exactly.
summer.
Yeah, it'll be exciting.
And I mean, I know a lot of people don't like to talk about this, but seems like, would you ever see yourself going to politics?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's something that it's something I would 100% consider just because my mom is in politics right now. But also like God willing, when I have my law degree and I'm more established and because of the fact that I already do work with and I know a lot of different politicians, I do think that there is a way you can create change for others and that you can also serve your community by being a politician. And hopefully being an honest politician, especially, and actually genuinely serving the community. It's incredibly important to me if I do go down that route. Right now, though, I'm definitely focusing on other endeavors before I get there. It's not something that
Your
I do
options are
anytime soon.
open. They're limitless. You can do when you want, what you want, when you want.
Exactly. There's no rush for that either. Like I said, I want to feel more established with my career, with family,
And you're creating the foundation between your
Exactly.
philanthropy work, getting your law degree, working in the, working now,
Yeah.
so you learn different things.
Yeah,
And let me
exactly.
guess, Republican?
So that will be a question we leave for later.
So smart. She already think like a politician.
We will leave that for later. We'll see. We'll see when the day comes.
No, that's important. I mean, I think especially women in politics. It's very important here in this country. Seeing like we have a woman running for president this year.
Of course.
What do you think about the U.S. political system at the moment?
I mean, the thing that breaks my heart the most is how polarized everything has become,
Yes.
and how you can't really have a healthy discourse with other people on this topic without it becoming people getting angry, people not wanting to speak to you if you don't have the same beliefs as them. It's just become so toxic, to be completely honest with you. The last
10 years, I would say.
10
Because
years.
before that, we didn't have that. If someone said they were
No.
Republican or Democrat or undecided,
I mean,
nobody cared.
exactly. But you
Or
can
I voted for this president versus that. They were like,
Yeah,
okay, whatever.
exactly. But now you can even see with the way our politicians are behaving, the way they speak towards each other. I mean, you don't really see that healthy discourse anymore.
No,
And
you don't.
it's so disappointing to see that, because, as a politician, especially when you're running for office or such a big role, it's so important to set an example for others of what kind of leader you're going to be. And it's important to, respect one another. It's important to set a good example for the rest of the country of what a strong leader is. And I think something that a strong leader does is a strong leader unites people. You're supposed to be able to work with both sides you're supposed to be able to work with all different types of people, both sides of both parties. So it's important that, a leader is able to kind of reach both. And I don't think that we really see that anymore. And that's really disappointing to see, because it's sad what our country's become, and it's scary to see us going down this really dark road. And I really hope to God that we're able to turn things back around, where we can, live in a country where everyone feels free to express our opinions.
And and I know that there are definitely politicians or aspiring politicians
Right.
that think the way you do.
Yeah.
But I just feel like the way politics are today, they're just making it so much more difficult for change for even, the new generation to step in.
Absolutely. And I mean, especially for me, I grew up with my mom, who grew up during communism. She grew up in communist Albania, where you could not speak out against the government because you would have been silenced. They either would have killed you or thrown you into jail. Part of what makes America so amazing and so beautiful, and why we're so privileged to grow up and to live here, is the fact that we have these freedoms where we can, have differing beliefs with other people. So the fact now that people feel like they can't express, their opinions or their voices because they're scared of what it'll look like in the workplace or what others will think of them, that's a problem, because everyone in this country should feel safe to politely express your political opinion. Obviously, I'm not saying you should have the viewpoint where you think you should ever be putting down other people or anything like that, But I think it's important that everyone feels safe in this country. That's what makes America so great. And if America doesn't have that, I mean, the rest of the world isn't.
It's not going to follow.
It's not going to follow.
No, I agree. Shifting a little bit back to Shoqata Ulqini. Is this your first year working with Albanian organizations?
So I've reached out to different Albanian organizations in the past, but in this sort of capacity, yes, this is definitely one of my first positions. I did also work for a different Albanian organization as part of their youth leadership program, where I did put together an event focused on empowering young girls. This was a few years ago. But yes, in terms of this big of a role, this is more of my
more leadership.
First, yes, more
leadership
of a leadership
role, where those were project based.
Yes, I did have roles, but it was something that I had to kind of take on my own for the most part. Now I have a bit of a team that
supports you.
That definitely supports me.
Yeah.
Again, I'm still taking on a lot of those leadership roles of doing things on my own, but I do have more support.
So how do you see the collaboration between Albanian organizations so far? Do you see, any controversy there? Do you see that we work well together? Tell me a little bit about your opinion in that regards, because you're fresh into the scene.
Right. I'm fresh into the scene, to be fair.
Yeah.
I think some Albanian organizations are wonderful and they want to collaborate. I do think other people see these organizations or see these leadership roles as a way to kind of further uplift themselves and their egos and focus on them.
Instead of focusing on the community.
Exactly. Or, you know, they're a little intimidated if they see another organization is doing more than them. They're not as supportive. It definitely happens, unfortunately. That to me is disappointing, though, and I think that to me speaks volumes of someone's character and someone's true intentions because, like I said earlier, if you're not doing this for the community, then what are you doing this for? It's not about serving yourself. It's not about saying, oh, my name is so-and-so and this is me and I'm going to blast myself everywhere. It's really just about the people that you're serving. That's what you do this for. So it's definitely disappointing when you do see that. But like I said, I can't say that's for every organization. I think that's just some.
So how do you change that, right? Because now you guys are in a leadership role, or you have a role in the community where you can kind of bring some of these organizations together.
And you've done it successfully in the last couple of events. So
yeah.
And well, more than that, just to add to that, a lot of this leadership in these organizations, they're not really, I would say they're a little bit old school, right?
Right.
There's not a lot of young people involved in this type of organizations, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I probably think that Shoqata Ulqini is the only one that has such a young board members, executive board, out of all of them. If I'm not mistaken. If there's any other organization that has young people that are part of the executive leadership, right?
I can't really speak. Yeah, I don't know exactly because I haven't seen or met the board members of every organization. But yeah, like our president is extremely young. Now as executive director, I'm also pretty young. I'm 22, so I'm still young. I think it's important, though, to have young people that are taking on these issues. Like I said, the old school mentality can sometimes be so harmful.
Yeah.
But luckily, I think that the young people are definitely changing that. So
any collaboration with other organizations that you guys are working on at the moment?
Not that I know of at the moment. I'm definitely open to working with different organizations. For example, at my women empowerment event, I spoke to a bunch of women that I definitely do see myself collaborating with their own organizations or their businesses. That's actually another thing that I do want to do. I want to do a networking event for like Albanian business women and maybe do something focusing on that too. So I do see that there could be some collaboration. I just think it's important that everyone's open-minded. I'm open-minded to working with other people. Like I said, I'm really about serving my community. So as long as other organizations are kind of willing to join forces, I don't see why not.
Do you have any advice that you can give someone who is like 15, 16 years old and they want to, get involved more in the community, like how they can do it?
So now that we have the internet at our fingertips, it's so easy to find different organizations online. So I think it's reaching out to different organizations, seeing if there's ways you can volunteer, you can join. I also see a lot of students who are starting chapters at their school, whether that's in high school or college, like Albanian student organizations where, you're able to collaborate with other Albanian students and you're able to put together little events and do fundraisers. I think things like that are really important. And just trying your best to get involved. Like I said, like the last 2 events we did were free, those were free for the community. So like being able to join and take the initiative to come out and put yourself out there, I think is also really important. Something else that I do try to do, especially with my events, I'm going to speak just for my events. I do want everyone to feel welcome and feel safe. Like I don't want people to come in and worry about feeling judged or feeling like people are going to say anything. I want my events to be a place where people feel safe and people feel celebrated and supported.
Tell us a little bit about your childhood, being a first-generation Albanian. Your mom from Shoqata, your father from Ulqini, and came here. What was that like? Did you grow up listening to Albanian music? Did you do folk dances?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what are your fondest memories?
Well, first of all, I think growing up, not even just Albanian, but growing up the daughter of immigrants, the firstborn daughter, is a lot of pressure and it's a lot of responsibility that gets put on you. So I definitely feel like I was always very mature for my age because of that. In terms of growing up with the culture, though, I grew up with my mom making Albanian food, listening to Albanian music. I did do Albanian dancing when I was younger. it was something that's always been super important to me. And even though
you still speak the language?
Of course. And even though like I grew up in predominantly more American areas, not really places with a large immigrant community or really any Albanians, I really grew up learning just the importance of valuing my culture and just really still staying very connected to it.
Very nice.
Yeah.
What were some of the challenges of being a firstborn?
I mean, there's so much, I would say.
You see those things on Instagram about firstborn versus the middle child versus the sibling.
I think my parents especially put a lot of pressure on me to be, the best role model for my siblings, to do well. I definitely helped take care of my siblings as well and helped around the house and did all of that as well. My mom even says, she's like, I always treated you like an adult. She's like, because you acted like one, even when you were a kid. So there's definitely challenges and pressure with all of that, and just wanting to, do the very best and be a good role model for my siblings. And then also, there was other things too. Like, for example, when it came to going to college, my parents at first always had the belief like you were going to have to stay at home and commute. And the schools that I wanted to go to were very good schools, and they weren't schools that I could really commute to. They were schools that I would have had to have dormed at. So I remember literally having to have so many conversations begging my parents, like, please let me just dorm. Eventually, I won, but it was a lot.
Where did you end up going?
I ended up going to Trinity College up in Hartford. It was a great experience. Despite COVID, I made a lot of really great friends, and it definitely taught me a lot. So I'm grateful for that time. But yes,
your persistence paved the way then for your siblings and for future generations.
But I definitely feel like my siblings have a lot of an easier time of doing things than I did. That's for sure.
You had to fight for everything.
Exactly. Like when it came to even studying abroad, because I lived in Rome for 6 months and studied abroad.
Oh, okay.
I literally remember having to like beg my parents for months, like, please let me go. Please let me go. I was like, this is an amazing opportunity. But my parents eventually, the reason why they sided with everything is one, I was always pretty well-behaved kid. I was never a wild child. I never like went out and partied and did crazy things. And second of all, my parents also knew that all of this was for education. I graduated from a really good school. And when I studied abroad, I had an incredible time.
Yeah, your parents definitely trusted you, but I think they get a little bit more nervous about other people, especially, with the work that you do with human trafficking and being in another country. And now they don't have control to be there to protect you.
Of course.
So, yeah, it makes sense.
What are some of your role models?
Well, I have to say my first role model is my mom.
Okay.
My mom is my biggest role model only because she's such a great example of what it means to be a strong Albanian woman. She's been through so much in her life, but she never allowed that to put her down. She was able to get educated here in America. She's now in the political sphere. So I think she's a big role model for me. In terms of other role models, like outside of just my mom, I would say someone like Malala, who was, shot by the Taliban for standing up for women's rights and for the women's right to educate herself. That was something that inspired me because she was such a young girl when this happened. Also, Mother Teresa. She was someone, actually, this is something I spoke about when I last competed for Miss Connecticut USA a couple years ago. During my interview, the judges asked me why I chose her as someone who inspired me. And I said that it's because Mother Teresa, came from a small country of Albania, but across the world, she was someone who's known now for her heart. And that's something that I do want to be known for. Whatever mark I make on the world, I do hope that I leave the legacy where people can see my heart in anything I do and everything I do.
That's a good answer. It's no wonder why you won.
Thank you.
Well, Samantha, it was a pleasure to have you here and learning more about you and your story and your vision and what you're going to do next. We love to hear more about your projects. Let us know. We like to always support you.
Thank you so much.
I'll be at your next event.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, it's such an honor getting to
let us know.
work with you guys.
Let the people know how to find you on Instagram or social media, and where to look for the new events.
If they want to get involved with some of your projects.
Yeah, you can follow me at Sam Sarelli. You can see Samantha Sarelli on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, all of that. And then you can also follow at Shoqata Ulqini _USA if you want to see that specifically and like things with the Albanian community. But definitely, if anybody wants to, definitely feel free to reach out. I am very busy, so sometimes it takes me a while to respond to certain messages, but definitely make sure you reach out. And I'd love to, collaborate. If anyone has any ideas, if anyone wants me to take on a certain issue and do an event on it, just let me know. And if anybody wants to, be a sponsor and, sponsor a venue or anything like that, definitely as well. It definitely takes a village to put this kind of stuff together. So.
Definitely.
Indeed, it does. Well, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an honor just to speak with you both.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you.